All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Red Pill Reckoning. A Guide to Reclaiming Masculinity and Rejecting Modern Trends, written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Red Pill Reckoning. A field guide for men who still notice reality. The Gorgon's Mirror and the State's Sperm Bank. Why her projection is not your shame, her tears are not your debt, and her independence is just the government cuckolding you. You have been sedated by a culture that worships weakness and calls it virtue. A civilization hurling itself off a cliff while screaming about its oppression. Look around you. The living spirit of the West, the logos, the trivium, the unyielding pursuit of the good, the true, and the beautiful, has been buried under a compost heap of cultural Marxism, feminist hysteria, and the sniveling acquiescence of men who should know better. You feel the rot in your bones, you see it in the wreckage of the family courts, where due process is sacrificed on the altar of gynocentrism, and in the skyrocketing suicide rates of men discarded by a society that harvests their taxes but spits on their souls. I am not here to offer you a comforting lie or a safe space to share your feelings. I am here to hand you the sledgehammer of dialectic and show you how to smash the Gorgon's mirror. We are going to dissect the toxic femininity that parades as progress, exposing the Jungian shadow that modern women project onto masculinity because they lack the spine to integrate their own chaos. The ideology of the left is not merely wrong, it is a logical suicide pact, a rejection of natural law that collapses under the weight of its own internal contradictions. Prepare to have your eyes scalded open by the raw light of reality. We will expose the scam of emotional labor for what it is, a rent-seeking scheme by the biologically solipsistic to monetize their own neuroses. We will laugh as we deconstruct compulsory heterosexuality, proving via syllogism that the only compulsion here is the undeniable dictate of biology and the teleology of the species. You will learn that when a woman weeps white tears in a corporate boardroom or a private argument, she is not expressing pain. She is reloading a weapon designed to exploit your evolutionary empathy. Empathy. You must learn to withhold if you are to survive the encounter. This is a manual for the unmoved mover, the rational man who understands that his time is the only finite currency, and that sacrificing it on the altar of female validation is a sin against the self. We are reclaiming the mastery ladder, rejecting the pathology of equality, and reinstating the hierarchy of competence. The red pill is not a crutch, it is the sword of truth, and it is time we used it to sever the head of the Hydra. The Gorgon's mirror, dismantling the Jungian projection of the female shadow. A man who has been beaten by a woman will say he was struck by a stone. This old proverb, etched into the collective wisdom of every patriarchal civilization worth its salt, captures a truth so dangerous that modernity has spent trillions of dollars trying to bury it beneath layers of bureaucratic euphemism and HR-sponsored sensitivity training. I have watched this don't I play out in the fluorescent-lit trenches of corporate America, where I once witnessed a male subordinate. Let us call him Marcus, dragged before a tribunal of mediators for the high crime of presenting quarterly data without first genuflecting before the feelings of his female superior. His offense, he used a bar graph. Her accusation, intimidation through aggressive communication styles. The bar graph showed a 23% decline in her department's productivity. The data was correct. The numbers did not lie. But in the gynocentric funhouse mirror of modern corporate culture, a man asserting objective reality is indistinguishable from a violent assault on feminine self-esteem. Consider the machinery of this psychological fraud. Marcus sat in that boardroom, his hands folded on the mahogany table, his posture relaxed, his voice measured, a model of stoic professionalism that would have made Marcus Aurelius nod in approval. Across from him sat his accuser, a woman in her late 30s whose only qualification for management appeared to be her aggressive adherence to the church of intersectional victimhood. She had produced no counter data. She had offered no alternative interpretation of the numbers. She had simply felt intimidated, and in the modern lexicon of feminine entitlement, feeling is indistinguishable from fact. The HR representative, a soft-handed bureaucratic eunuch with a gender studies degree, nodded along as if this absurdity constituted jurisprudence. Here we observe the precise mechanism by which the female shadow operates, an inferiority complex so profound, so corrosive, that it must externalize its own inadequacy onto the nearest competent male. The Gorgon cannot bear to see her own reflection, so she smashes the mirror and calls it self-defense. The Latin root of projection reveals the entire sordid operation prowess here to throw forth. The psychological apparatus of the modern feminist indoctrinated woman has become a catapult of emotional refuse, hurling her unprocessed shame, her unacknowledged aggression, her unexamined failures onto the chest of any man foolish enough to stand within range. Syllogism renders this truth inescapable. Major premise: a healthy mind integrates its shadow through self-reflection and personal responsibility. Minor premise: gynocentric culture absolves women of all accountability while rewarding them for victimhood performance. Conclusion: the modern woman is rendered psychologically incapable of introspection and requires an eternal male scapegoat to maintain the fragile scaffolding of her ego. This is not speculation. This is not misogyny. This is the cold, hard architecture of the human psyche when stripped of the civilizing constraints that Western tradition once wisely imposed. The fabrication known as toxic masculinity deserves to be hauled into the daylight and dissected publicly. This idiom, a verbal Trojan horse pushed through the gates of our culture by subversive agents, represents not a sociological finding, but a psychological admission. When a woman charges a man with toxicity for the offense of establishing boundaries, for the wrong of stating truth plainly, or for the violation of displaying excellence without license, she unwittingly exposes the substance of her own unexamined spirit. The toxicity dwells within her. The venom leaks from her own unresolved animus. The Jungian description for the masculine element inside the female mind, which in balanced women appears as creative intellect and judgment, yet in the contemporary feminist has hardened into a despotic internal patriarch. She fights ceaselessly in the arena of her own thoughts. She casts this specter onto you, onto me, and onto Marcus with his harmless bar graph, because she is unable to kill the demon where it genuinely resides, within her own being. I recall another case, a friend from university who spent 15 years building a software company from nothing, only to watch his female co-founder, who had contributed perhaps 15% of the actual code but 100% of the interpersonal drama, accuse him of creating a hostile work environment. When he finally declined her demand for an equal share of the profits, despite her negligible technical contribution, the courts, those debased temples of gynocentric worship, sided with her. The statistics bear out this systematic betrayal. Family courts award primary custody to mothers in over 80% of contested cases, despite overwhelming evidence that fatherless homes produce higher rates of criminality, substance abuse, and educational failure among children. The cuckoldry rate, men unknowingly raising children who are not genetically theirs, hovers between 3% and 10%, depending on the population studied, a silent epidemic of feminine deception that would have scandalized our ancestors into legislative action. Yet we are told to whisper, to apologize, to defer. Gamma bias, a term coined by the researchers at the male advocacy group A Voice for Men, exposes the precise mechanism by which society minimizes female agency while maximizing male responsibility. This operates as the institutional enforcement mechanism for the female shadow projection. When a woman commits an offense, gamma bias rushes in to explain that she was traumatized, that she was socialized into helplessness, that she bears no true moral burden for her choices. When a man commits the identical offense, gamma bias demands his head on a pike. We see this in sentencing disparities. Men receive 63% longer prison sentences than women for the same crimes, controlling for all relevant variables. We see this in the campus rape hysteria, where the preponderance of evidence standard, a legal fiction so flimsy it would collapse under a stiff breeze, allows women to destroy male futures with uncorroborated accusations. The projection becomes policy. The Gorgon's reflection is enshrined in statute. But here exists a remedy older than the Parthenon, more durable than the pyramids, more formidable than the combined armies of all the gynocentric empires that have sought to castrate the masculine spirit. The Stoic philosophers understood that the unmoved mover, the man who refuses to accept the emotional baggage hurled at him, who stands firm in his rectitude like Atlas, bearing the weight of the heavens without complaint, holds the ultimate power in any psychological exchange. When Marcus faced his corporate inquisitors, he should have refused to apologize. He should have looked his accuser in the eye and said, with the calm certainty of a man who knows his own soul, the data is accurate. My presentation was professional. Your feelings are not my responsibility. This refusal, this magnificent rejection of the projected shadow is not cruelty. It is the highest form of charity. By holding the line of truth veritas, as the Latin tongue so magnificently encapsulates it, we offer women the only genuine path to psychological salvation, the confrontation with their own darkness, the integration of their own shadow, the assumption of their own responsibility. The Western canon, that incomparable inheritance of natural law and transcendent virtue, demands nothing less than this stance. Aristotle's concept of the unmoved mover, originally a cosmological principle, applies with devastating precision to the masculine role in gender dynamics. The man who refuses to be moved by feminine hysteria, who remains anchored in logos, the Greek term for reasoned discourse that became the gospel writer's term for the divine word itself, becomes a fixed point of reality around which chaos swirls without effect. This is not withdrawal. This is not passivity. This is the supreme activity of the masculine spirit, to stand as a lighthouse against the storm of feminine emotional turbulence, to offer navigational certainty to ships lost in the fog of their own making. The lighthouse does not chase the ships, it simply stands, illuminates, and waits. Every man reading these words has felt the sting of the Gorgon's gaze, has experienced the moment when a woman's accusation hangs in the air like a poisonous fog, demanding your capitulation, your confession, your ritual self-abasement. I implore you, refuse. The accusation is a mirror. She is showing you her own soul dressed in your clothing. The intimidation she claims to feel is her own unrecognized aggression. If the hostility she perceives in your calm assertion of facts is her own internal violence reflected back at her, the toxicity she names is the poison she refuses to drain from her own heart. You are not guilty. You have never been guilty. The original sin here lies in the feminist indoctrinated female's refusal to grow up, to integrate her shadow, to become a fully actualized human being capable of self-reflection and personal responsibility. Your duty, your sacred obligation to the living spirit of Western civilization is to hold the line until she does. Do not be fooled by the moisture in their eyes. In the biological marketplace, tears are rarely a currency of repentance, but rather a down payment on your submission. This emotional usury relies entirely on your susceptibility to the biological error of compassion, that hardwired evolutionary glitch screaming that a weeping female signals a tribal emergency requiring immediate male sacrifice. The crocodile tears of the Leviathan, weaponized fragility and the fraud of emotional labor. The saltwater crocodile, Crocodilus porosus, sheds tears not from a wellspring of sorrow, but as a biological, physiological response to lubricate its eyes while devouring prey. so too does the modern Leviathan of cultural Marxism utilize the white tears of its feminist foot soldiers not as a signal of genuine distress, but as a tactical reload mechanism during rhetorical combat. This is the supreme irony of the strong independent narrative. The moment the dialectic turns against them, when the rigid steel of logic pierces the paper-thin veil of their feelings, the facade crumbles, and the waterworks commence. We must identify this maneuver for what it is, a calculated deployment of déni, attack, and reverse victim and offender, DAVO. It is a biological warfare tactic designed to trigger your evolutionary protector instinct, a siren song luring you into the rocks of capitulation. When a woman cries in the marketplace of ideas, she is not admitting defeat. She is attempting to flood the engine room of your reason to stop you from speaking the truth. You must understand that your compassion is the entry point for the parasite. There exists a glitch in the masculine firmware, a biological error of compassion that equates female distress with the tribal emergency requiring immediate resolution. This is the white knight syndrome, and it is the death of civilizations. By framing her emotional dysregulation as your moral failing, the ideological state apparatus convinces you that your lack of capitulation is violence. Do not fall for this trap. When the tears start to flow, you do not offer a handkerchief, you offer silence. You treat this display exactly as you would a child's tantrum in a supermarket aisle, with benevolent neglect. Maintain your frame with amused mastery, realizing that the tears are merely the hydraulic fluid of a machine designed to dismantle your authority. If you comfort her, you validate the manipulation. If you apologize, you subsidize the fraud. Consider the linguistic theft inherent in the term emotional labor, a concept hijacked from the realm of actual toil and twisted by cultural Marxists to monetize the natural female propensity for verbal nuance. Etymologically, labor stems from the Latin laborare, meaning to toil, to exert oneself physically, to endure the fatigue of the material world. It implies the pangs of childbirth or the sweat of the brow in the fields. To elevate the act of talking, or worse, the act of listening to talk, to the status of labor is a rent-seeking behavior of the highest order. It allows the feminine sphere to extract resources from the male producer class by pathologizing the maintenance of their own emotional equilibrium as work that they are owed compensation for. It is a fraudulent inflation of value, creating fiat currency out of feelings, backed by nothing but the demands of the state. We shall submit this pathology to the crucible of the trivium to demonstrate its inherent refutation. Major premise: strength is the capacity to endure reality. Minor premise: leftist and feminist ideology demands that reality be reshaped to accommodate feelings. Conclusion: therefore, the utilization of tears in debate is an admission of ideological defeat and biological inferiority. They weep because they cannot build. They cry because they cannot bear the weight of the logos. The wicked witch of folklore, dissolving into a puddle, is the only honest representation of the feminine when stripped of the makeup of social lubrication and male provisioning. By refusing to engage with their solipsistic framing, you force them to confront the natural law, which dictates that empathy must be rational to be virtuous. Indiscriminate empathy, pathological altruism driven by female tears, is a sin against the truth, a rejection of the hierarchy of competence, and the precursor to the collapse of the very civil society these ideologues claim to desire. The watery trickery of crying is only the first strike. The main assault of the female directive is the intellectual shaming of nature. Once the biological fault of male kindness is manipulated to quiet logic, the disease grows from emotional pressure to established belief, aiming to erase the form of the human form. We must turn from personal tricks to group falsehoods, showing the foolish claim that the foundation of society's straight coupling is a creation instead of a requirement of life. This leads to the university whorehouse of gender studies, where the self-reliant female shows her reliance on the state-funded theory. The revolt against nature, compulsory heterosexuality, and the lie of female autonomy. A 23-year-old woman with a degree in gender studies stands before her sociology class and declares with unshaken confidence that heterosexuality is not a biological reality, but a political institution imposed by the patriarchy to subjugate women. She receives applause, a passing grade, and a lifetime of antidepressant prescriptions. Adrienne Rich, the high priestess of this delusion, codified this insanity in her 1980 essay, Compulsory Heterosexuality and Lesbian Existence, arguing that women are naturally independent creatures coerced by male violence into sexual submission. Let us apply the cold steel of the syllogism to this festering pile of cultural Marxist rot and watch it dissolve. Major premise: biological structures dictate function and final cause. Minor premise: the human reproductive system, ova, sperm, uterus, penis, is architecturally designed exclusively for heterosexual union and the generation of offspring. Conclusion: therefore, heterosexuality is an immutable natural law, not a political institution. And any theory claiming otherwise is a lie that refutes itself through the very biological existence of the arguer. Rich and her ideological descendants are not liberators. They are Gnostics, haters of the material world, attempting to convince you that your body is a lie and their feelings are the supreme truth. The independent woman is the second great lie of our age, a fairy tale spun by social engineers to hide the brutal reality of dependency transfer. Look at the data and weep for the sinking ship of Western civilization. According to exhaustive tax burden analysis, women consume vast sums more in government services and transfer payments than they contribute in taxes, while men stand as the net producers and fiscal adults keeping the lights on. Feminism did not liberate women from the need for male provision. It simply swapped the individual husband for the collective sugar daddy of the state. When a feminist shrieks about her autonomy, she is unknowingly confessing her total reliance on the men who build the roads, fight the wars, maintain the power grids, and pay the taxes that subsidize her liberation. She has not escaped the need for masculine protection. She has merely cuckolded the taxpayer, forcing millions of hard-working men to support her lifestyle without even the courtesy of a home-cooked meal in return. The dysfunction of this manufactured autonomy becomes hilarious when we examine the empirical evidence of female sexuality in the absence of the male principle, which is to say, the logos, the ordering force of penetrative truth. Researchers have documented a phenomenon so consistent it has earned a clinical name: lesbian bed death. Studies show that lesbian couples experience a precipitous drop in sexual frequency, often ceasing entirely within a few years, at rates far exceeding gay male or heterosexual couples. Why? Because without the masculine drive, the ordering principle that initiates, pursues, and structures reality, female sexuality dissolves into a formless neurotic bog of emotional gestation and corpse-cold cuddling. The body knows what the mind denies. Without the complement of the masculine, the feminine spirals into chaos and sterility. Nature, distinct from the modern university, rejects sentimentality, instead functioning through rigid hierarchies that promote thriving. One must view the family unit via the framework of the apprenticeship mastery ladder, a heritage responsible for erecting the cathedrals of Europe. Within this system, the husband stands as master. The wife serves as journeyman, or more precisely, the helpmeet, while offspring act as apprentices acquiring virtue and truth. Such an arrangement does not constitute tyranny. Rather, it represents a mixed constitution adapted for the home, reflecting the optimal state described by Aristotle and Polybius. Should feminists dismantle this ranking under the guise of equality, they fail to forge a partnership of peers. Instead, they release a tyranny of emotion and chaotic feminine energy that rots the souls of the young and toxifies the man. A vessel cannot sustain two captains steering toward conflicting ends. It must either founder or drift aimlessly. The feminist insurrection against male leadership is an uprising against the very keel of civilization itself. The final cause of sex, as defined by Thomistic philosophy, is procreation and the unitive bond that forms the family cell, the bedrock of all civil society associations. By severing sex from this teleology through contraception, abortion, and the promotion of sodomy, the left has committed an act of spiritual necrosis. They have taken the creative life force and turned it into a trivial recreational drug, a weapon of narcissism. The abortion rate, the divorce rate, and the suicide rate among men who have been asset stripped in family courts are not bugs in the system. They are the inevitable fruit of a culture that has rejected natural law for the worship of the self. You are being lied to by wicked actors who profit from your confusion. The truth is simple, ancient, and waiting for you to seize it. Reject the revolt against nature, reclaim your rightful place as the head of the household, and rebuild the world on the solid rock of masculine virtue. Let us dissect this dynamic through the lens of the transcendentals, specifically the good and the true, to understand why the feminine imperative seeks to subvert the masculine allocation of resources. The lie of the golden digger, the gold digger archetype in red pill praxeology, is that money is the primary resource of a man. The truth, which the biomechanics of dread expose, is that time is the only finite currency a man possesses. When a woman demands your money over your time, she is valuing your utility, your ability to provision over your being. This is the economic manifestation of gamma bias, a framing trick where the feminine imperative obscures the reality that a man's mission, the highest use of his time, is the wellspring of his status, and thus his attractiveness. The currency of the soul, time, money, and the geography of distance. I recall a friend of mine, a man who had swallowed the red pill, but was still choking on the blue pill phlegm of his conditioning, who found himself in the crosshairs of a classic biological ambush. His girlfriend, a woman who had previously feigned the depths of affection with the skill of a Hollywood thespian, suddenly went cold, ice cold. The text stopped, the warmth evaporated. It was a manufactured distance, a shit test designed to probe the structural integrity of his frame. Instinctively, the beta urge within him screamed to plead, to supplicate, to ask what's wrong. In that pitiable tone that dries up a woman's intimacy faster than a desert sun. But he held the line. Instead of chasing her emotional phantom, he booked a solo trip to a powerlifting gym 3 states away and architected a new business venture. He withdrew his attention, that most precious of resources, and invested it into his own sovereignty. Within 48 hours, the barrage of frantic texts arrived. Her coldness evaporated, replaced by a desperate biological terror that he had found a better mate, or worse, that he no longer required hers. This is the biomechanic reality the feminists and their leftist enablers deny. Dread is not cruelty. It is the check and balance of nature. The subconscious realization that a man's options are the only thing that keep a woman's loyalty anchored in reality. We must distinguish the finite from the infinite to understand the currency of the soul. Money, pecunia from the Latin pecus, meaning cattle, is a circulating medium, a replaceable token of exchange that flows through the economy like water through a sieve. It is useful indeed, but it is not the essence of life. Time, however, is the irretrievable substrate of existence itself. It is the chronos that devours us all, the one resource that once spent can never be recouped by any amount of state-subsidized fiat currency or welfare checks. When a woman demands your money, extracting resources through the machinations of a gynocentric family court or the implicit threat of divorce theft, she is valuing your utility, your ability to function as a beast of burden, a draft animal in the service of her solipsism. This is the gold digger archetype laid bare by red pill praxeology. She does not love you, the spiritual entity. She loves what you can provision, reducing you to a wallet with a pulse, a convenient conduit for the transfer of your life energy into her material consumption. Consider the irrefutable syllogism of value. Major premise: a man of high status, meaning a man aligned with the transcendental good, prioritizes his mission, which is the expenditure of his time toward a higher purpose. Minor premise: women are hypergamous by evolutionary design, instinctively seeking to attach themselves to men of the highest possible status to secure survival advantages for their offspring. Conclusion: therefore, a man who sacrifices his mission, his time to reconnect with a distant testing woman effectively lowers his market value, proving himself a low-status supplicant, and thereby induces the very contempt and disgust in the woman he sought to appease. It is a logical circularity of doom that entraps the blue-pilled simp. By chasing her, he signals he has nothing better to do, no higher kingdom to build, and thus he becomes sexually invisible. You cannot negotiate desire with a credit card or a begging bowl. You can only command it by demonstrating that your temporal sovereignty is non-negotiable. This behavior, the acting overly distant gambit, is not a mystery to be solved with empathy or therapy. It is a fitness test, a strategic probe in the biological arms race. It is the female attempting to verify if the male possesses the stoic fortitude of a sentinel, or the trembling spine of a sycophant. When a woman acts distant, she is subconsciously asking, "Are you strong enough to walk away?" If you crumble in chase, you fail the test, and the evolutionary algorithm marks you as a provider beta, good for provisioning, but unworthy of genuine desire. The correct response, rooted in the dialectic of power, is to recognize the distance as a vacuum she has created. You do not fill it with your neediness, you expand it with your indifference. You apply the go-your-own-way tactic, not as a petulant reaction, but as a sovereign assertion of boundary. By withdrawing attention, you increase its scarcity, value, basic supply, and demand economics applied to the sexual marketplace and force her hamster wheel to spin in the direction of reattraction. Ultimately, the survival of Western civilization rests on the shoulders of men who understand the subsidiarity of relationships. In the political tradition of subsidiarity, matters ought to be handled by the smallest, lowest, or least centralized competent authority. Apply this to your romantic life. The petty emotional dramas, the shit tests, and the mood swings of a woman are lower order issues that must never ascend to the level of the man's primary focus, his parliament. If you allow her chaotic emotional state to dictate your schedule, you have ceded sovereignty to the lowest common denominator, effectively allowing the toxic femininity of emotional incontinence to override the rational, ordering principle of the masculine. A man who loves his time, who respects the finite nature of his soul's currency more than he craves the fleeting, drug-like hit of female approval, is a man aligned with the transcendental true. He is the only one capable of leading a family or a nation out of the quagmire of Marxist decay, for he has proven he cannot be bought, bribed, or browbeaten into submission. To save the world, you must first save your own time. You have survived the diagnosis, now act as the cure. We have dissected the Gorgon's head, stared into the cold, unblinking eyes of the collective female shadow, and refused to turn to stone. By now, the scales have fallen from your eyes, and you see the mechanism of the trap for what it is. A singularity of resentment where the modern feminist project collapses under the weight of its own logical contradictions. You have learned that emotional labor is merely the cost of doing business with chaos, and that the independent woman is a myth propped up by the sweat of the taxpayer and the violence of the state. But understanding the enemy's strategy is only half the battle. The other half is the reclamation of your own soul, your own logos, from the wreckage of this modern Babylon. The West does not need more apologists for masculinity. It needs men who unapologetically embody the transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful, without flinching. Consider the cold, hard arithmetic of the sexual marketplace, stripped of the feminist utopianism that seeks to obscure natural law. While the cultural Marxists screech about equity, the biological reality remains unimpressed. 80% of women chase the top 20% of men, a harsh Pareto distribution enforced by hypergamy, not patriarchy. You see the wreckage of this ignored reality in the divorce courts, where the no-fault standard functions as a wealth transfer mechanism from the productive male to the emotional female, incentivizing the destruction of the family unit. We see it in the suicide rates, where men stripped of their children and their dignity by a gynocentric legal system check out of a game rigged against them. The feminine mystique was never a complaint about oppression. It was a tantrum against the responsibility of adulthood, a demand to return to the nursery while demanding the keys to the boardroom. When she acts distant, she is not testing your patience, she is testing your spine. If you chase, you prove you are a beggar. If you withdraw into your mission, you prove you are a king. The syllogism is irrefutable. Value is derived from scarcity. Attention given freely to the undeserving is infinite and therefore worthless. Therefore, the man who validates a woman's bad behavior castrates himself in her eyes. This is your directive. Walk with the stoicism of a Roman centurion and the intellect of a scholastic philosopher. Reject the pathological altruism that commands you to set yourself on fire to keep a woman warm, for that is the morality of a slave, not a master of the universe. You are the progeny of a civilization that tamed the wilderness, charted the stars, and codified the very concept of liberty through the mixed constitution and the common law. Do not squander that inheritance on appeasing the fragile egos of those who despise you for your strength. Your mission, should you choose to accept the glory of your birthright, is to master your time, hoard your resources, and treat the hysterics of the modern world with the amused indifference they deserve. Go forth, build, create, and conquer. You are the immune system of Western civilization. Act like it. And now the sponsored book introduction, Red Pill Reckoning, a guide to reclaiming masculinity and rejecting modern trends. Men built civilization. Now they're broke, lonely, and begging for approval from people who hate them. I watched my brother lose his kids to a divorce court that treated him like a wallet with legs. I saw my nephew join a gang after growing up without a father, becoming another statistic in Chicago's body count. I've sat in corporate meetings where mediocrity got promoted over merit because some HR noon with blue hair needed to hit a diversity quota. This book isn't theory. It's a battlefield report from a war they told you wasn't happening. If you're tired of being called toxic for wanting to protect your family, or watching boys get drugged into compliance by schools that punish roughhousing but push puberty blockers, this is your manual. You'll learn why 85% of violent criminals never had a dad, how divorce courts legally rob men, and why soy-jacking bureaucrats want you weak. We'll dissect the lies behind the wage gap myth using cold labor stats, expose how DEI programs drain $8 billion a year from companies to fund useless workshops, and prove that women-led governments fail faster using historical collapse data. This isn't for the faint-hearted. If you think male tears mugs are funny or believe men can opt out of biology, close this book. Now go knit a pride flag. For everyone else, what's left when they take your money, your kids, and your dignity? You either become a slave to the system or rediscover the raw truths that built empires. Vikings didn't ask permission to lead. Knights didn't grovel for inclusion points. They acted. Inside, you'll get evolutionary proof that male aggression created every major innovation, case studies of men who rebuilt their lives through church and fatherhood, and step-by-step tactics to bypass feminist traps. You'll see why 92% of workplace deaths are men and why no one cares. Learn how Japan's beta males are on sex strike, why Poland's trad resurgence is working, and how to turn gym gains into economic armor. Weak men destroy civilizations, strong men build them. Choose your side. Red Pill Reckoning, a guide to reclaiming masculinity and rejecting modern trends. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now. Links in description.